Tim Dyer is your average Canberra guy, studying and working. But arriving home from work today, Tim's not going to start uni study. He's rehearsing with his band, Starfish Hill. The boys are passionate about the music they write, record and perform themselves. They're recognised as very talented with their own sound and have a big fan base on MySpace and Facebook, as well as a core group of people who watch their gigs. The four indie rockers want to focus on their music, but it's nearly impossible to support yourself as a musician in the ACT. So they're planning to move to Melbourne.
The main problem we're having, like a lot of bands are having in Canberra at the moment, is that the local live scene is died. There's no support for live music in Canberra at the moment.
Part of that, a lot of venues have stopped putting on band nights and stuff because DJs are so much cheaper and they don't have to have sound guy and things like that.
You know, look at the CDs. I mean, they're all people that have sent me CDs that are all trying to get me to book tours, and I haven't got the venues for them.
Limited venues and support are challenges that bands like Starfish Hill are finding in the ACT, which means that more bands are moving to places like Sydney and Melbourne to make it in the big time.
The challenges to musicians in the ACT are highlighted in 3 current inquiries into live events, noise restrictions and a review into arts in Canberra. Arts ACT is the government's Arts Policy and Funding Unit. Director David Whitney explains the Territory's arts policy finished in 2008, and these government inquiries are establishing what policy will replace it.
What we hear from live musicians is that it's difficult, and from venues it's hard for them to get somewhere to go.
Labor MLA Mary Porter was the chair of the inquiry into live community events that recommended changes to noise complaint options, better public transport and more accessible music facilities.
There are 2 different types of noise as well, and that's something that we found out, and we asked that a lot more study be done into the amount of noise that actually is coming out into the street or actually exists on the street itself. We made recommendations too about more or less first come, first served. So if you happen to be there, then you have a right to exist and a right to carry on your business. If somebody else comes in after the effect and wants to, say, set up an apartment building right next door to a live music venue, then really the onus should be on the apartment developer, him or herself, to take measures.
Boyd Kelly believes excessive government regulations like increased fees around air conditioning, alcohol and noise are making it harder for venues to support live music.
But all these things, I think, have pushed the smaller players that were trying to support live music out of the game. And now there's the big players left, and that makes it really hard for musicians.
I'm sure there are people that feel that way. I don't hold to that view, and I think that we are changing, our culture is changing quite significantly. I think that government probably hasn't been as dynamic as it could have been, and I think it's also looking at changing some of the planning regulations around making that much more useful for people within other venues and clubs and centres.
I actually don't think that there has been an over-regulation by government. I think that it's been a change of the environment in which they're working, in that now they have people living next door who are complaining about the noise.
The inquiries addressed a range of issues surrounding artists in the ACT, including how to support aspiring musicians.
There's definitely some really cool bands in Canberra. They just don't. We just don't have the opportunity to play together in bigger venues. So I reckon if you picked out the bands that were awesome and put them all in one place, you'd have a smashing crowd. But generally, no one knows what is going on.
Other opportunities of bringing it in together and making hubs of art activity rather than necessarily people out there working on their own.
I think the idea of having precincts that we saw in Queensland was an excellent idea, and I think if we could perhaps go some way towards establishing precincts, that will enable our artists to have venues that they know where they can come and they can perform.
After building up their popularity down south, this band will move to Melbourne early next year.
Once you get into Melbourne or get into Sydney, or both, you're pretty much set. As soon as you start building a fan base there, you're good.
People make the big mistake, I'm going to go to Melbourne and get a gig. Well, Melbourne's got a population of how many million? And how many people are there, of musicians, trying to get a gig?
The inquiries into live events and noise restrictions are open for public consultation and are available on the Chief Minister's website. Verity Dunn, NowUC News.